Good morning, and today we have with us Captain Prabhunath. Prabhunath is Assistant Vice President with G4S Securities, and he is the National Account Manager for Google. Prabhunath served the Indian Army in the infantry, and he was a short service commissioned officer. After having served the Indian Army for around 5 odd years, he came out and he has now carved a career for himself in the security domain. So today we have invited him to specifically guide us about the career path for short service officers in the security domain as to how short service officers can work for developing a fulfilling and rewarding career in the security industry in the corporate security domain. So thank you for joining us today, Prabhunath, for this very relevant discussion.
Thanks a lot, Vipul. I'm as grateful as ever. And the value network which you've created, I'm sure it's adding value to many of the officers, and it'll keep adding. So, wish you all the luck. Whatever little I know about this industry, I'll definitely be candid enough to share our brother officers, and I hope it will be of some value to them.
Sure. So my first question would be, Prabhunath, although you yourself are a short service officer, but why would you recommend security industry per se, asset protection, physical security, workplace protection as a career path to short service officer? What are the reasons as to why a short service officer should choose this as a domain?
Why so? Primarily, one primary reason for this is particularly the age at which the short service officers comes out. He has a lot of working life left with him. He has the energy, he has the passion. And within Forge, he has not developed any particular niche which stops him from getting into security. Otherwise, what happens when you put in 15, 20 years in a particular domain or function? Primarily, your fields to get into the corporate sector gets narrowed. And that's for good because you're specialized over these years. For example, a logistic officer, a supply core officer. They're doing this job for so many years. So it's good for them to carry on with their own field on which they have spent around 15, 20 years. Vis-a-vis the short officer, in 5 years, he has done whatever junior leadership courses, and he has not specialized into any particular domain so that which limits him to one particular field. And security is a very natural fit for all armed forces officers. So just to get a foothold and then grow, this is a very, very ideal function to get into once they leave the echelons of armed forces.
Okay. Now, for an officer who is now looking to transition, say around 8-9 years of service and another year or so would be making the transition, what would be the minimum certifications or courses or skills they should acquire from the corporate security perspective so that their transition is smoother and the acceptance is faster and at a better position?
In terms of qualification, I know if the guy is a graduate, everybody is a graduate. If he has a PG, whether he has done it before Forge, then it's all the more good, or he has earned it during the Forge, then also it makes sense because generally PG is considered as a good platform and it gives a very good qualitative material. And in addition, this is the base in terms of academic qualification. In terms of qualification or certification considering security, CPP is one gold standard. So if they do CPP, I think they are good enough to enter into the corporate sector, security function of the corporate sector.
From PG, that's the MBA program, or PG in any?
PG in any function, and if they're aiming for security, there are 2-3 fields which are more relevant. So PG in international relations, right? PG in public policy, if it is there, it helps. And if someone has done even undergrad law, that's also quite an good combo to have along with your basic graduation. Somebody is a law, because security deals with a lot of law function, whether in terms of the general law and administration side, or whether it is compliance side. So law also has a very, very relevant and active role in the functioning of security. So these are some, I mean, law undergrad, of course, PG, it won't be possible because that's altogether a different field. But if PG in public policy, international relations, and then law, I think these are relevant PGs to have. Or forensics. I mean, this is also a very upcoming field. If somebody's got a master's in forensic, that's also a good value add.
Okay. So the gold standard is the CPP, which is corporate protection professional, and then as an add-on towards the post-graduation, maybe a postgraduate qualification in either law or public policy or forensic, etc., should
Yes.
help in a smoother transition. This
Yes,
is for,
it makes it packs the resume a greater punch.
well, okay. Now you have covered this bit about those who are transitioning. Some of the short service officers who have just transitioned, maybe put in 2-3 years, and they are now in the security function. You as a senior professional from the industry, what would you say they should be, what qualifications or what efforts they should be making in the next 5 years for improving their prospects in the industry?
Okay, so if they are already there in the industry, ideally they should get all these qualifications which we discussed a while ago in terms of post graduation plus certification, and they must start creating a brand for themselves in the security function by way of being part of all the so-called desired network platform, basis international, forces network, LinkedIn's, so that people know that this guy exists in the security function. Start writing an article, a blog, start networking with the team, start organizing small events, write about the emerging technologies, get certified in other fields also. If you're already in the function, if you're done CPP, do something more, maybe a PMP, maybe something to do with investigations, something to do with cyber. So keep adding a lot of firepower to your resume, your experience, so that you become visible, the target audience.
Okay, so keep on adding layers to qualifications and
Yes.
make yourself more visible, etc.
Yes, absolutely. Use social media to your advantage, right? And in a positive way. I'm not saying make false noises, but I mean, share whatever you know, share. If you don't, learn it from others, follow the leaders of the industry, ask some relevant questions, connect with them. I guess these are the ways to make yourself visible.
Okay. Now you have been there for almost close to 2 decades now in the security industry. What would be your step-by-step advice to a short service officer who is now about to start a career in the security industry as to do this as the first step, second step, third step, at least some basic 4-5 steps wherein they can what kind of roles and companies they should target, if you can kind of give them a broad overview.
Yeah, so first step we discussed in terms of preparing before they're out of the services, right? Because unless you are aligned to what you wish to get, post you leave the forces, it'll be difficult. Then it becomes more of an accidental journey rather than a planned journey. So first is to identify the right destination, whatever it may be. It may vary from person to person, but identifying the right destination is very, very important. And since each of us has different aspirations, different responsibilities, different academic qualification, so we may not have similar destination, right? Based on our responsibilities, the loads we have to carry on our shoulders. So somebody may have the compulsion to get into a job immediately because of this. Somebody may have the leeway to spend 1 year for doing a regular full-time course. So, if somebody has the leeway in terms of time and resources, I'll suggest him to go for a full-time course. Whichever course he wants to. Maybe 1 year management course is a good platform, and then he or she comes at a very senior level of the hierarchy when he comes after a solid qualification. So my another advice to all, I mean, whether it primarily to youngsters, short service, that in addition to degree, have a pedigree and do one long-term course from any of the reputed colleges. This will make your life in the corporate very, very smooth in every function, and more particularly in the security function.
Okay.
So
One
this
more
is
thing
step
which I
one.
would,
I would say this is step one. So then we'll take on further after this question. So
okay.
sorry, I interrupted you.
No, so from what I understand, what you're saying is that as a pre-step, they should start aligning themselves to the different kind of roles, understand. Then step two, those who have the probably, I would say, the comfort of being able to pursue a full-time career, I mean, a full-time course, they should do a 1 year full-time course from a good campus. And for others, pick up the certificates which we just spoke about, and then that's how they
Yeah.
start. What kind of roles and companies these officers should target? I mean, let's say, I am not doing the full-time course and I have acquired the CPP qualification. I have done one on PG, and now how should I go about it?
Okay, so I'll just divide this into two segments, Vipul. One is for officers who want to stay close to their existing nature of job or the environment which they are used to in army. They can target the manufacturing sector because those setups are generally in the non-metro city. They are slightly off the city limits, and it's more of an similar to our cantonments which exist quite far away from habitation and all. And you are residing there. The whole company exists there, residential and all, and you live 24/7 life in those kind of companies. The way we live in Forge. But somebody who's more metro oriented, more white collared environment, more on the front ending side of the security, they should target the corporate side of the security. I mean, MNCs or companies whose headquarters are based in metros, and they can target for roles which are based in metros, or for the manufacturing companies whose corporate offices are based in the metros or tier one cities. So broadly, depending on which lifestyle you want to take on, you can take a call. But my advice would be to gun for multinationals in metros.
Okay. So, for developing a more rewarding and paying career, multinational in metros is what you would recommend to short service
And
officers.
more than remuneration or compensation, I'll say more from the progression point of view in life. Because there, you are interacting, dealing with people who are more smarter than you. They are knowledge workers. So when you stay with them, you upgrade yourself. Whereas manufacturing, a major portion of security interaction is with blue collar workforce. So there's not much to learn and progress as vis-a-vis what we get from the corporate sector or the knowledge sector. That's how I see it in terms of growth.
Very valid. Now, what skills, I would ask you this question. Having served in the infantry, what were the transferable skills which you kind of brought to the table when you started your journey in the security domain?
One great skill was not saying no, right? So I know bosses nowhere likes to hear no. It's only thing that army we had no option to say no. But in corporate, when I came, I was tuned to that. There was hardly any element to which I could say no, right? I at some instances it was just a muscle reaction to a task, but the ability to take on every task, the ability to be beyond the official clock hours, the ability to handle a team. I think these were some of the skills which helped me stand some ground. But a lot happened beyond these skills. But this gave me at least a founding stone to step on and could start my career in the corporate.
You would say that these skills are kind of more or less there for all short service officers, and they can leverage them for developing their career in the industry.
Yes, and probably more than what we feel, no? The perception of the industry is also very important. It's not what we feel about ourselves. It's what industry feels about the people from the armed forces per se. They feel these guys are disciplined, they'll be on time, and they'll be respectful, they can manage stress. So even if somebody not wishes to align to that, but industry perceives Fauji's that way. So it's good that we fit into those assumptions or those perceptions of the corporate. It's helpful rather than breaking it and then, because it's not about you, me. It's they perceive us as a fraternity. So it may not be Vipul or Prabhu's reputation. It's about the whole Olives or the Uniform Forces perception of the corporate.
Right. Okay. So what would you say is actually the difference between the security operations in the forces vis-a-vis the corporate world, and what are those changes, or what are those aspects one should be mindful of when they are when a short service officer is looking to switch to the security industry or this particular sector?
Vipul, the differences are huge. There's a general perception that the security, what we do is quite akin to what happens in corporate, whereas the reality is the poles apart. First of all, I know there are no guns, there are no terrorists, there are no bullets, there's no regimentation, there's no follow the order irrespective of whether it is right or wrong. These parameters don't hold true at all in the corporate sector. Corporate sector is all about the business must go on with minimal disruption. There should be minimal cost. If there's a cost, that cost needs to be projected, approved, then only it can be spent. There are no bad elements which we can compare to terrorist or those kind of anti-national. Here there may be few bad elements, but not as grave as in nature what we deal with, right? And it cannot be my way or highway. It's the organization's way which we have to align ourselves. And we are not the sole decision maker for any action. There are multiple stakeholders. Everybody needs to be taken into confidence. It cannot be just overnight that I decide to do this today and I'll do it. No. So there are a lot of behavioral and coordination aspects of it, which we as Fauji's have to learn and start differentiating the security operations of Forge versus the security operations of corporate. There's a huge difference.
Now, Prabhu, you have been in the industry for almost 17, 18 years now, and I believe that security industry, or rather I assume that security industry also would have undergone a lot of changes. What is the generally held perception about security industry in the armed forces fraternity, and how exactly is it on ground? What are those differences which, what's the difference between the perception and reality?
Yes, I mean, this is a very, very relevant question because there are many misnomers which people relate to security, that it's probably the poor man's job or no qualification entry barrier kind of. That may be true few years ago, or partially that the gentry which enters at the bottom. In fact, that also has transformed drastically. Even at the guarding level, you'll find people who are MBAs, but they are here because there are no avenues for them to utilize their experience, or it is not relevant to wherever they would have wished to go. So there's a huge change at the bottom of the rung also, and the kind of role the security plays in the success of any organization has also changed manifold, right? Whether it was post 9/11 or post COVID. So there's a sea change, and with the entry of technology and I know there's so many multinationals coming here, I think security is no more guarding at all. It's much more, it's a very valued function. Probably in most of the companies, we have security function in the C-suite as well. Most of the companies have a board member for security. It could be termed differently. It could be risk, it could be CISO, it could be CSO, it could have different nomenclatures, but in some form or the other, the functions related to security or risk have a presence in the board, and it is growing faster than ever. So we should not relate it to the the pedestrian image we had many years ago.
Okay. I'll ask you a last question, which probably you'd relate more to, yourself being a short service commissioned officer. Now, the short service officer is coming out at now typically in the early 30s with 10 odd years of experience, doesn't have a government pension support, and so I would say not really has the luxury of being comfortable in life, at least for another 10-15 years. You yourself are working as with one of the biggest security providing company, the company which is providing security as a service, as a business, and you bill your clients. So would you recommend the security service providing companies to short service officers vis-a-vis joining the corporates on the client side? The security providing company may be more challenging, may push the limits of the short service officer, but in due course will give them more media roles and better money and maybe a more frontline kind of, maybe a more, I would say, a more commanding role, maybe an executive position or things like that. Wherein in the corporate side, they would probably remain on the support side.
Very true, Vipul. In fact, this question or this issue is very close to my heart, and I think it will be close to any short, closer to any short service officer's heart, because I have lived this. So whatever I say, I've gone through this, and it's not something which I've got it from some reference material. So my one primary advice to short service officer or brother officers is that please don't make another short service career. You've already made one. Now make a career and remove the short part of from it at all, once for all. So find where you want to go. And I'm sure the age on the side, the energy on the side, choose a field where you can grow beyond your dreams, which you have not thought. And for this, you will have to choose an area which is not as comfortable. So, from the current perspective, you may be comfortable in your current role, but choose an area where you are slightly uncomfortable, but the growth potential is huge. And that's where the vendor side of the business also comes, because here you have to drive everything from the balance sheet, right, from the cash flows. And this will give you the greatest growth if you stick to this for 5-10 years and get into the business side of this. Then probably no corporate function can match the growth which you can get here, provided you stick to that uncomfort zone for 5-6 years. 5 years, I think, and get into the business side of that function. And the returns would be huge, and the learning would be even greater. And switching to corporate role won't be that difficult, even after 5-7 years of having spent on this side, because then you see the whole spectrum. You have seen both sides of the rainbow, and you know what client expects, you know how the vendor side works, and you have a better perspective on the security industry as a whole, rather than sitting on just one side of the table. Then you are more of a master. Then it's more of a master-servant relationship. But when you've served on both these sides, then you see the entire delivery context of this business. And I think you are a more mature profession. And I think it's a win-win for both the sides, because you understand as a client, you understand as a vendor side. So I think that's a good way to start, provided you want to get into little uncomfort zone, and then you reap the benefits of that.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a very relevant and apt guidance. I hope that the short service officers who are looking at security as a career would gain from this discussion. Thank you so much.